Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to 2020 Spring LCK. I'm Atlas, and I'm once again joined by Chobra here for our second match of the day, SANDBOX versus APK. Both of these teams desperate for a victory.
Absolutely. I mean, both of them could use it. Obviously, just for a morale boost as well, and also just making sure they're not dropping any further, which, you know, may be a little hard for some, but just making sure they stay alive, really, in the league right now. And quite frankly, kind of on different trends, too, for both these teams right now.
Yeah, exactly right. APK haven't been able to find too many victories of late. They did take down Hanwha Life 2-0, a task that DRX and T1 have found difficult in the last couple of games, but losing to T1, losing to Damwon, APK on a downward trend. However, SANDBOX have picked up a couple of victories in their last two. Griffin and Afrika Freaks have been dispatched by this squad, and round two has definitely been better for these guys. And they've been making changes. I mean, Summit hasn't been seen towards the top lane, and Lonely does have better stats when it comes to the top side of the map as well. Maybe not doing quite as much damage as Summit, but still being a little bit more stable as that kill participation up much further than Summit as well. So a lot more team play coming through from their new top laner, as Punch has also been attending the jungle, and this is the guy that has a lot more veterancy, a lot more experience than OnFleek, but OnFleek has been a very stable member of this team throughout a long period of time.
Yeah, and right now, of course, looking at APK's previous game, which was the longest one with the most kills so far.
It was so weird.
I mean, it was just a mess. I mean, I found that a lot of the fans, especially in Korea, were kind of excited by it just because there was so much going on, and it was a bit of a mess, and there was just a lot to look out for. But of course, from for really breaking down the game, there wasn't a lot of good play going on. It was more who was making more mistakes, I feel like, at times.
Yes.
At the end of the day, Damwon, of course, able to pick up the victory, and APK not seeing that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, not being able to find the win, but it was fun, if not the highest level of League of Legends, which is absolutely fine. It was a joy to have an unleashed Wadid on that broadcast to really be able to let himself out, because, you know, like the Korean broadcast and the English broadcast, very different experiences, as you would know, Mr. Chobras.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I had a lot of trouble adjusting whenever I got a chance to be on the Korean broadcast as well. It's much more, part of it's cultural, and it's also just how casting is done a lot of times in Korean. It's much more focused on like just pure like energy and entertainment from that standpoint, rather than getting really deep into the analysis or being critical of certain players and teams. So it was very fun to listen to Wadid yesterday, of course.
Yeah, the unleashed Wadid, absolutely amazing. But the points of the match sort of showing us the differences between SANDBOX now and SANDBOX in round one. I think the last point is a really cool one, with Punch the Savior coming in to try and get them back on track. And we'll see exactly what the roster is very soon for this SANDBOX Gaming. But they have looked better, even though I don't necessarily feel like in-game it's been entirely jungle difference that's been helping them out. But something has obviously changed, and I think the makeup of the team has been the adjustment that they've needed moving into the second round robin. So we'll see whether SANDBOX can continue. So far, they've had a pretty comfortable run, and the 2-0 against Afrika was the biggest surprise, honestly, in round two as far as SANDBOX's play. And Griffin and APK should be easy matches to win in comparison to that one. So we're certainly putting SANDBOX ahead as far as the expectation, but APK are very good at throwing these curveballs. And the gigantic damage numbers that they were able to put down against Damwon was certainly an example of that. As we have a look, last time these two teams met, they had the shortest game for 2020 Spring LCK, 22 minutes and 21 seconds, and that was a SANDBOX stomp. So that is largely in line with what we're expecting here.
Yeah, statistically speaking, SANDBOX definitely ahead, even though both these teams are towards the bottom of the ranks. I mean, SANDBOX, like you said, the last time they met, they were able to stomp this matchup, and then they've been looking on the up and up coming into the second round, so hopefully they're able to keep that momentum. On the side of APK, I mean, it just seems like sometimes they have these quick little shining moments, and they're just not able to close it out. They're not really able to really showcase any form of consistency or stability, I feel like. They just have random moments where a certain player performs a little bit better. Obviously, Ixu, even in that game against Damwon, was putting up crazy numbers, but it wasn't in any place or timing that was really helping the team.
Yeah, exactly. And 66,000 damage is certainly a lot of damage, but you do need to win the game afterwards as well. So a little bit unfortunate there, but what can you do? As Punch coming on in to try and save things, and Flawless trying to attempt the same thing there. As you saw, no changes for the lineup of APK, but it is going to be Punch and Lonely once again here for SANDBOX. And this is the most consistent, I feel, that SANDBOX has been so far as their roster is concerned. So I'm glad to see that they finally felt stable enough to settle on a roster.
Yes, yeah, it's always a little worrying if a team takes too long to do so. I mean, sometimes, right, it just takes like a full season to really shake things up, and that can happen, but especially as fans or even the players themselves, if you're not able to get into that groove, it just feels bad, right? If you're always trying to figure out who's going to play and what you need to play. As we look at the matchup between Lonely and Ixu here, it's a debate that you have. SANDBOX seems to have escaped from that. And of course, between these two players, I mean, Lonely, very new, whereas Ixu's had the experience under his belt a little bit, even if the scoreline may not show it for the team. Yeah, that's exactly right. But Ixu does have a few things going for him. His solo kills first right now, as far as round 2 is concerned. 3 solo kills for Ixu. These are stats for only the second round, so they might look a little bit strange because we have seen some larger DPM numbers for some other players. But in round 2, Ixu has been popping off. And as far as Lonely is concerned, Lonely came in for round 2, which is why we're comparing these particular stats. But he has been able to figure himself out, and with very low jungle proximity, he's still able to have that really high kill participation, which means that his team fighting has been working out very well here for SANDBOX. Yeah, I think it showcases what movement he's making rather than obviously relying on the jungler coming into that top lane. But that may have to change. And like you said, we saw that Ixu obviously quite aggressive and willing to dish out that damage even just within the laning phase. So Lonely's got a little bit to work with here. Yeah, that's exactly right. As we've got very quick bans coming through from SANDBOX. They do not want to see Aphelios, guys. That's been confirmed. Set taken off the board here by APK, wanting to deny that from the support role and mid and top lane. And we'll see where they decide to go for the rest of these bans. The Varus on blue has been very common, as we didn't see it in our first series, but it is certainly one that has become very popular in SANDBOX. Probably going to go for the cookie cutter Aphelios, Kalista, and Senna bans, as APK might look towards an Ornn ban here or something like that, but might just leave it open with the eyes on it to try and lock that one away for themselves. Yeah, I mean, unless they're going to lock it up, which I would assume maybe it's not as high of a priority, right? I think they're okay giving a lot of those more combative top laners for Ixu, so leaving that open, leaving the Ornn open, but also not really banning out anything else. Seems like they might end up, if they don't pick the Ornn and it's not banned, they might end up giving Ornn plus another high priority pick to SANDBOX. So I'm interested if it's the Ornn or not. With that Tom Kench ban, I'm a little concerned if it's not the Ornn, and it's not. It's Jarvan. Yeah, the Jarvan priority is definitely going up over recent weeks. We didn't see it in our first series, but it has been certainly a very high priority jungler. But leaving Ornn available in order to grab the Jarvan shows us that Ixu might have something planned to try and combat it. There's now Sejuani being hovered, 5 seconds to go here from SANDBOX. Punch would be sort of going away from his playstyle, but certainly is going to set up SANDBOX to have a pretty decent team fight. As now we'll see what Punch decides to pick up to augment this Sejuani choice, and it's just going to be the Nautilus. So Ornn is just slipping through this draft. No way. I mean, I think perhaps SANDBOX also, assuming that it may not be as high of a priority for APK, maybe both sides do have an answer. Obviously, we talked about it in our first match, with the Sylas potentially being a good enough answer. It can answer certain portions. Is it always going to be consistent? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's interesting that Ornn, I'm wondering if it's more of a mind game or if it's like both teams just don't really feel like playing Ornn. I'm not sure which one it is. I would hope that it is the former rather than the latter.
Well, we'll have to find out, as APK are going to take away the Braum here. Might be a response to just the Nautilus in isolation, as cover hovering the LeBlanc. So once again, the Ornn is going to just be completely out of the way. Wow. Kali being flashed for a second, but I think that the priority of the LeBlanc is certainly enough to try and get it over the line. Thankfully, not going to be locking away that Aurelia that cover went 0-4-0 on in that dream first game against Damwon, and it is going to instead be the Ezreal and the Braum locked in for the bottom lane. Solo lane is still left up in the air here for APK, as SANDBOX can take away Ornn now and then ban Sylas and ban responses to that Ornn pick, but they decide not to, as Dove goes back to his namesake here as the Azir is locked away. A favorite combo, actually, is the Azir and Sejuani in tandem, with the amount of CC and teamfight power that you will have with those two champions.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the Azir, you know, for the side of SANDBOX makes sense, given just how the ban pick has gone so far. But again, very curious about the Ornn. Now with APK, this obviously puts the message out that they're really just concerned about prioritizing their solo laners, making sure that they can get an edge, just trying to get a read. Now they do have the read on the mid lane, so that's opened up for them, and potentially also saving that top lane for their last pick as well for Ixu. Seeing if they can get ahead in laning phase is what I'm getting. LeBlanc being banned out after the hover there. Of course, they don't want to leave that open. Yeah, really, I don't know if it really merited a ban in terms of performance, but obviously it's still available as a pick, so against that Azir.
Yeah, it is very, very strange. I feel like they were watching the first series and they're like, oh, Sylas is available, we can't pick Ornn. But I don't agree. I think the SANDBOX could lock in Ornn right now and be very happy and then counterpick AD carry towards the bottom side later on. Of course, they do know what that bottom lane is going to be, so they can easily just take that one away and leave any top lane choice for last pick, and that's exactly what they are going to do. But now APK, I mean, just pick Ornn. Like, I don't know, man.
I have this feeling they're not going to, and I have a feeling SANDBOX is not going to. I just think this is going to be a Ornnless game, which is very weird. I think Ornn's one of those champions that it doesn't matter if you're not the greatest at it, right? And it doesn't.
Yeah.
And he can offer so much regardless of composition. Obviously, there are certain cases where he fits a lot better, but he can just offer so much, given everything he can do, including obviously augmenting those items. So this is very, very interesting. The Zoe obviously has been very powerful in the recent matches, so not surprising to see that coming out, especially with a little bit more range to deal a lot of poke damage against some of these champions that need to come in. And there's the Ornn, finally, for Ixu. Very weird that it took that long.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an understandable pick up there, but the fact that it was picked at blue 5 is just insanity. As there's a bit of a crash in the background there. Just ignore that one, guys. It's okay. My kitchen is exploding, but that's because obviously whoever's behind me is upset that the Aatrox into Ornn matchup is once again happening. And in fact, my girlfriend, she just shut the door. She's like, I do not want to see this Aatrox versus Ornn garbage again.
I just can't. What baffles me is that it took us that long to see the Ornn, and at the end of the day, it was just this Ornn Aatrox matchup. Like, there was nothing special about it. No one had any hidden cards or any surprises. And so I'm not really sure how we have to read, the thought process here, but it definitely seemed like there were some other priorities, as tends to be the case, actually, when you get to kind of the bottom rank teams in a lot of leagues, right? Because there's just more comfort picks and other priorities that you want to shut out and try to get an edge. So that's the only way I can explain it. Outside of that, I mean, obviously Ornn's going to be that powerhouse in that top lane once again. Jarvan's just been able to be much more active around the map. I think Sejuani's still, personally, in my opinion, a little questionable, given what she's able to offer. I mean, the team fight prowess will never change, but compared to kind of the tempo that the game seems to be taking these days, I am a little hesitant on giving the edge there for Sejuani. And I think the damage also coming in from Zoe and Ezra with the poke should be able to keep a lot of SANDBOX at bay. If it goes really late, yes, Azir and Caitlyn will be able to shred through a lot of the front line even, but will it get to that point? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to find out as we get onto the Rift here for game number 1. I feel like APK's draft, if you take the nameplates off, looks just way better than what SANDBOX have available to them. I don't know how they managed to get it, because the Ornn should have been first rounded, and then things like the Jarvan should have been taken away. But, you know, sometimes you just win, and it's totally fine. But we'll have to see what happens, because SANDBOX are the team on the winning streak so far, and it feels like they had shored up some of their issues in round 1. But still, after a draft like that, I don't know what to expect, because just going in for a red 5 Aatrox surprise pick into the full 5 of APK is just weird.
Yeah, especially the entire composition as well, not just the Ornn. It does seem weird. I mean, and we've seen it, right? We've seen it a couple times, and it hasn't really spoken for itself yet. So I'm not entirely sure. Looking at the runes here for the Caitlyn.
Yeah, going to be heading towards lethal tempo, as well as having Gathering Storm, which is going to make LS smile just a little bit. I know that he's in the chat paying attention, and probably going to be smirking just a little at the rune choice. But we don't see a lot of the lethal tempo on the Caitlyn. Sometimes, I think more often than not, we do see the fleet footwork still utilized, just to make sure that you can be as frustrating as possible in the lane. But Root's just maximizing damage potential here. As you can see, getting that one little proc onto Secret, but unable to actually utilize the rune at that point in time.
Yeah, I think obviously...
Yeah, sorry, you continue.
Sorry. Yeah, obviously being able to get that proc from afar, but also, like you said, the focus is Rout's going to have to put out so much damage in order for them to win any of these fights. So I think really just going for the bigger picture here rather than a little bit of that early lead they could get with the runes.
Yeah, we'll see how it pays off for them as this game continues. A very scary mid-game composition for APK, with abilities to scale with the Ornn and his delivery of items over to players like Hybrid and to cover. Will help shore up their team fighting as they move later into the game, as Dove is going to face check Flawless. Nice knockup. Denies the shifting sands, but Punch is in position, and Flawless taking a hell of a lot of damage. Cover picks up a barrier, utilizes it there as well, but Flawless punished for his aggression, but does now give Cover a life lead here in this lane.
Yeah, now Cover did have to use his heal as well that he brought into the game, so just to make sure that Flawless gets out. So while he does have the life lead, obviously is missing that crucial summoner should a gank come in soon after, but it doesn't look like it, and it will be pretty well telegraphed at this point in the game, so I think Cover's okay being able to just get a little bit of an advantage against his laning opponent in depth.
Yeah, well, you can see Ixu utilizing this Ornn pick into the Aatrox very, very well thus far. We have a look at how many times these players have picked up the champions, but there's a bit of a fight towards the bottom side as Gorilla has his Aftershock worn off. It is still going to be able to have a pretty even trade here against the bottom lane of APK as the Caitlyn shoves in, as she is wont to do most of the time. Cover picking up a little hijacked summoner spell there as he gets his heal back. Nicely done. Lands the trouble bubble there, but unable to get the extra damage onto Dove.
Yeah, just keeping Dove at bay, making sure that Cover's not losing that advantage he had. Not a monumental lead, obviously, this early in the game. Just a slight advantage in CS, which with the poke potential that Zoe would have, is not surprising as we see a potential dive. Yeah,
it's a big knock-up there with the Searing Charge. In fact, knock-ups everywhere as Lonely is going to be taken down, and Ixu survives. Perfect flash there onto the turret as Flawless noticed that minion was just going down and didn't want to risk getting hit by the turret. Really nicely done, but they did have to use both of their flashes, but First Blood does go over to the Jarvan.
Yeah, I mean, the gank, I think, was just well-timed. Lonely played that as best as he could. Got the flash knock-up as he was trying to back out, but was just too low too early, and eventually gets bursted down right as his flash ends. So a little bit unfortunate for Lonely, but good movement from Flawless, just timing that perfectly with the push from Ixu. And again, we're seeing the Ornn getting an early lead. That's not a good place to be when you're SANDBOX. Obviously, now able to kind of handle himself quite well in the solo situation as well.
Yeah, and as you can see, first Drake spawning in 5 seconds time will be that Infernal. Infernal Soul off the table. Both of these teams would have really liked it. We'll see what they're going to go towards. I can feel LS in the back of my mind saying that we're going to need an Ocean Soul here to try and deal with the poke on APK's side. We'll see what is actually going to be rolled here this game as Flawless does flash himself out. I think that he might have been trapped
I think
something.
he was, yeah. It looked like it. The movement, just not able to kind of figure out the path. He must have been trapped in from that little pillar from Orin as well. So a little bit unfortunate. They got the kill, and at least, you know, they didn't give up. They didn't trade a death, right? So that still works out in their favor.
Yep, absolutely right. As now APK pushing back here towards the bottom side, even at the moment as far as the farm is concerned, but Root just wanting to get towards item number 1, where he can start shoving things out, and as soon as that BF sword is in his back pocket, they will have some lane control for a little while. Ezreal, of course, when he hits 2 items, will be much stronger than the Caitlyn, but Ezreal's time in the sun is yet to come so far. Although, Root taking a pretty bad trade there as Gorilla going to get stunned up. But does land the dredge line beforehand punch, making his way in, but can't really find an avenue of attack. And SANDBOX just going to continue playing some Biffo, but not going to have the help of their jungler anymore.
That actually, unbeknownst to them, I think, that actually ended up working out quite well for APK, because we saw a lot of that movement coming down from SANDBOX, both the jungler and of course mid lane, either positioning for a dive in the bottom or potentially also clearing out the area around the Drake. They started the fight early from the side of APK, which forced SANDBOX to also respond a little bit earlier before both Punch and Dove were available, and now they're actually going to see SANDBOX back a little bit early, and so APK able to push that out, shove it into the top turret, but Flawless starting the dragon on his own. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, and you can see Punch is going to pick up the aggro of this one. He doesn't want to flag and drag to get himself out, but he does have to. Is now Drake once again picked up from SANDBOX, but Cover's going to make his way over a little bit earlier. Gorilla in slight trouble, but it is the Sejuani locking down the dragon. Punch has to flash to get out, but isn't going to survive as now Dove uses the ultimate defensively, but Cover flashes after him. Shifting Sands comes down as Root's able to grab a kill, but answered back immediately by the Ezreal. As now, good flash there from Root, gets himself out of the way, but Flawless was very close to securing yet another one for APK, and 3-1 is the kill score at the beginning, and close to a 2,000 gold lead here for APK Prince.
Yeah, the Drake did go to SANDBOX, but at the end of the day, APK really able to close out that fight. Flawless, I think, was waiting and hoping that they could drag the Drake on for just a little bit longer so he could use his combo to get back into the pit. Because you see, obviously, he has to use it early. He's just trying to draw out as much time as possible for his teammates to show up, decides it's not going to happen, has to get out before the stun lands within the pit. And now, if you see, he doesn't have his flash, of course, so he's waiting to try to get back in. In this time, had he just started walking around, I think they may have had a better chance. Of course, there were more enemies from SANDBOX on the top side of that dragon. They're still able to chase through. Gorilla takes a lot of damage from Hybrid. It's going to be a support trade as the Braum goes down. Hybrid trying to chase through. And Rout, I mean, just surviving very well with the flash at the end. Had he been knocked out, that would have 100% been another kill for Hybrid.
Well, we'll see how they're going to go as this game moves further forward. We've got things very even as far as the bottom lane is concerned, and in fact, all of our laners are staying pretty toe-to-toe. Punch has a slight lead as far as farm advantage up against Flawless right now, but Flawless is going to retain his relevance throughout this early to mid-game versus the Sejuani, who's yet to get to that tanky point that they're going to be really comfortable. I do want to bring to everyone's attention just the priority that SANDBOX have on this Aatrox. They loved it when it was Summit playing top lane as well, but he played it 3 games in a row last time around up against Griffin, and that was a rough series top lane wise. It wasn't one that Lonely was really able to capitalize on until the last game, and they've done it again. And I just don't know what the payoff is. I can't see it.
Well, I mean, I would say so far there isn't any, both in practicality or theory, so to speak. But I mean, surely they have a reason, though, right? There's no way there's no reason. Maybe there could be a bad reason in terms of, I don't know, comfort picks or whatever else it might be. But so far, it's not paying off, and this game doesn't look like it's going to prove us wrong either. So, no. Unfortunately, that portion of the draft and Lonely and his performance in terms of the Aatrox is not really going to see any positive trend, hopefully, until the next game. This game's already kind of gone by, and SANDBOX actually positioned very sneakily.
Yeah, setting up a bit of a trap here as Dredgeline is going to land a whole lot of damage in CC, and that's a very dead Braum. Is not able to offer enough damage back. No back to be stopped there by the True Shot Barrage either, as it sails majestically into the night. As Flawless has started off Shelly here, so he is going to be able to at least get that answering objective across the other side of the map. So, you know, a slight advantage for SANDBOX as far as the kill is concerned, but still, the plates will be available with Shelly in addition, so possibly more even than SANDBOX would otherwise like.
Yeah, I mean, that if there's a silver lining for that move, it is, like you mentioned, that it gave a little bit of time for Flawless to catch up in terms of farm experience and, of course, that objective with the Rift Herald. And so APK, I mean, you know, they're still holding on to not a big lead, but a lead nonetheless, a little bit from that early fight near Drake. And now that they have the Herald and the first Drake going to SANDBOX, they should be able to continue to widen that lead. I mean, you see this damage, that's through the shield that Braum puts up. So it's just so much damage coming in. And on top of that CC, like you said as well, Braum just didn't move an inch after he was stopped the first time.
Well, APK now with a whole host of control, regardless of that kill going down. It's pretty inconsequential onto the Braum because they weren't able to follow it up with any sort of response, and not having the Cloud Drake available for the next 30 seconds as well, so couldn't even head towards there, even though Cloud Drake isn't exactly the one that you're really excited about. But we're rolling between Mountain and Ocean, and SANDBOX really want to have an opportunity to get towards an Ocean Soul this game to mitigate all of that poke potential. So 50-50 chance that they were able to lock that one down, and the Cloud Drake probably going to be cycled as quickly as possible in order to get there as fast as they can. Okay, Gorilla going aggressive. They're underneath the turret here as Shelly is going to pop out, and that's going to be plates delivered over to APK. This tower not going to be able to survive for very long, but it's down to its last plate here. And APK not able to break through it just yet as True Shot Barrage to clear out the wave and get a bit of damage there onto Dove and the bottom lane of SANDBOX.
Yeah, Gorilla tried to get that easy dredge line onto Jarvan as he was trying to channel the Herald. Was a second too late. Jarvan steps out, Zoe gets pulled in. At the end of the day, no kills on either side. Ixu going to pick up a plate for himself, and actually this opens up SANDBOX for the second Drake.
We got a bit of a fight for it though as APK come down. We do have Ocean Drake coming through next. Great news for SANDBOX, but this isn't a huge Ornhorn. Will get the stopwatch out of Gorilla, but he's not going to survive it. As goes Golden does Flawless. He's going to survive this time, but APK answer back with their team fight, and we'll see whether they can continue to move on and grab all 4 of these Ocean Drakes away from SANDBOX as well, because SANDBOX getting the Drake is actually pretty good news for these guys, moving towards an early possible Ocean Soul, which could save them.
Yeah, the Ocean Soul, like you mentioned, is so important, especially for SANDBOX, but really, and that means for both sides as well. So APK now able to stack it up all the way. SANDBOX, of course, just getting that Drake for the gold and to cycle it through to this Soul. So they're successful in doing so, but despite having what seemed like an advantage in that objective, they're not able to stand up in the lead of gold, especially with the turret plating. And you see here again, they're trying to funnel out. The Ixu teleport comes in perfect timing, gets a triple knockup, and then the Jarvan ult, not able to lock someone down within it, but within the Cataclysm, but actually locks Gorilla out of the rest of the team, able to secure at least 1 kill for APK.
Yep, and Cover using like 5 summoner spells in a row right there, picking up like a Zhonya's and then a flash and then a heal and then all sorts of different stuff. But that was after the team fight was over, as damage dealt out from Hybrid certainly working out. And I'm glad that we had that chat with Wadid yesterday about Hybrid, because he's a bit of a fan of this rookie AD carry on the side of APK, and it's good to see him performing, especially after that conversation was had, because this guy does have a level of aggression that a lot of our other AD carries don't necessarily have here in the LCK, and the levels of aggression are something that we really do welcome here, because things can be a little bit slower. So we'll see whether he continues to push his foot down on this Ezreal, as now they're transitioning to try and take down this top outer turret. A lot of damage there as Secret able to layer over his concussive blows. True Shot Barrage is going to soften up this minion wave and finds Gorilla there in the backline. So some scouting as well as some damage.
Yeah, SANDBOX responding very well, noticing that the swap came in, and of course a potential dive as well. So Lonely's going to survive. He is going to continue to go back. I think they realize that most people have backed off. But Flawless actually deep in the enemy jungle.
Yeah, he will be able to find Punch here as Cover's over to the side. He has himself a Proto Belt, a lot of extra damage there onto Dove, but the Trouble Bubble, it arms onto the Azir, and Flawless is going to be taken down before that even goes down. But a triple knockup from Ixu. Dove very, very low, and the Aatrox is going to fall down. Cover looking for Dove, but there's not enough sparkles, and he's not able to lock down the Azir.
Oh, that was a really good play from Cover, but like you said, Flawless just goes down too early. Cover actually gets the nice burst onto Dove, had the Proto Belt picked up as well, so got an extra burst, comes back, and then puts down the bubble in front of Dove. So Dove hits it as he goes through with the Shifting Sands, but alas, Flawless was just a little bit too squishy, goes down, and they're not able to capitalize on 2 extra kills that APK could have potentially had, which means it's just 1 kill, which is, you know, not the end of the world. They trade it off, but they're not able to gain any sort of huge advantage off of that rolling into a different objective like a turret.
Yeah, it still does feel like APK do have control of this game, regardless of evenness in these fights, because as this mid game gets more and more established, it's going to be all about Zoe and Ezreal just taking control. As we have a look at Flawless, it seems like he's found Punch, but Dove is going to get here. And the bubble, of course, he picked up the bubble on his way through, but Emperor's Divide came out before the CC was able to land, and he had the cleanse available anyway to get out of the bubble stun. So Cover couldn't get in there for anything, and SANDBOX do manage to trade evenly there, but we'll see whether they can put themselves back together. 1 minute until the Ocean Drake is going to be available, and APK will not, they cannot risk losing this one, because SANDBOX really require it in order to continue moving towards a potential victory.
Yeah, they only need 2 more, of course, to secure that soul. We are seeing stats going up for Ezreal.
But not very much. That's 46 stacks.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's a long way away.
Yeah, given how much damage he's had and how well he seems to be doing, it appears that it's got some time before he's able to come into full potential. And if that's delayed by quite a bit, I mean, that's good news for SANDBOX, because we talked about it in the beginning of the game, Atlas, that timing where you see Cover and Hybrid coming into full force going into that mid game was going to be the scariest part for SANDBOX. If they can avoid that and they can actually kind of match where that spike happens for their Caitlyn and Azir, it's not going to be as scary. But APK continue to have that advantage in terms of just overall map awareness and objectives. They're going to get that mid turret with Shelly as well.
Yep, and they're going to be able to move towards this Ocean Drake, and it looks like SANDBOX aren't going to be in position in order to take that one down. The control with the Rift Herald, fantastically utilized, and APK are going to take away one of the opportunities for SANDBOX to find a key to victory. This game is just feeling like it's all about APK, and they have thrown games before, don't get me wrong, but they are in probably one of the best positions early game that we've seen them in for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're playing to nearly the best ability they can given the resources they have right now. They feel pretty comfortable. I think SANDBOX is starting to show a lot better movement, as Lonely just not having a good time. I mean, even in that fight earlier, actually going to get...
Yeah, looking for a solo kill, can't get there. Umbral Dash, pretty strong. Gets Lonely out to safety.
But yeah, Lonely, I mean, tried to go for the flank in the jungle on the top side as well earlier in the fight, and ends up getting there too late to add any damage, and then also getting caught out to die. So I feel like at this point in the game, SANDBOX almost feels like they're ignoring Lonely's existence in this game, and they're just kind of letting him sit there and fill that spot, and they're trying to focus on other objectives, which is probably the right decision, but it feels very bad for an Aatrox who wasn't able to get aggressive.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I mean, that's what this Aatrox pick feels like in this composition, right? It just feels like a passenger that's not really able to offer anything. So it could have been any sort of pick into this Ornn. So I don't know why the Aatrox is something that they've been obsessed about. We did mention that the Aatrox is often picked to try and answer the teamfight potential of the Ornn, but I just don't think you can ever answer the teamfight potential of an Ornn. And the best way to do it is to pick something like a Camille, something like a Fiora, and just split push against the Ornn and become stronger in a much different playstyle to what Ornn is good at, right? Take him out of his comfort zone instead of playing into the hands of the Ornn.
I think it's one of those things where the theory makes sense, but the theory makes sense that Maokai would be a good tank as well. And in practicality, that just never seems to happen anymore. And I think that's the case where Aatrox, I mean, Aatrox can, right? Aatrox is very strong, as he might get teleported on here 2v1.
Yeah, he is. Hybrid turning up there as Secret is going to have to use the Unbreakable, but they're not going to be able to kill the Aatrox here. And Gorilla was roaming down towards the bottom side, so intelligent to back away there by APK. But Root now going to have inside track here on this outer turret in the mid lane. Caitlyn doing what Caitlyn does best, just shooting turrets as best as she can. Now Flawless looking for his way in. He won't have the flag and drag, but they are able to defend their turret, even though it is on very low health. And APK set up their defenses one more time. Flawless does have his stone plate, so he is at a pretty good spot to start these fights.
Yeah, Flawless is not going to be afraid to jump in, and Gorilla...
Yeah, caught shopping for a little bit, but able to dredge line himself out. But there's the on-horn. Gorilla in trouble. Going to get knocked up despite the flash as the ulti flies in from Secret. Another knock-up from Flawless. Gorilla's not allowed to play the game. He's just permanently CC'd and taken away. 2 minutes now until the Drake, so APK. Not too many options as far as things to take away, but they'll steal Bertha, and they'll move towards getting even more control of this map.
Yeah, I mean, APK continues to get these kills. Now, I am a little concerned because, like you said, they're not able to really turn it into anything else. Now, APK plays this correctly initially, not committing because they know that the rest of the team is around, but Horn decides that they are going to commit. And like you said, Gorilla just cannot move. He's knocked up 3 times in a row. Not able to do anything else during that fight. It gets taken down by the entire team of APK. Now, SANDBOX overall has shown some better movement than in the first portion of the game, and with that timing, Gorilla got cut out that time, but if they're able to regroup and maybe start getting a little bit more vision...
Yeah, good bubble is going to land as Root getting chunked out here. You can see Hybrid playing very aggressively, just running on forward. The heal used by Cover just to try and chase this one down, but Sun Turret will deter APK. And now we're moving towards 1 minute away from this Ocean Drake. APK looking for their second, and I know we were talking about SANDBOX relying on an Ocean Soul here this game, but APK can also utilize it very well to keep all of their mana up for this poke,
sure.
and being able to go in and out of these team fights with Ixu's health bar being such a rubber band. It's very scary stuff. Gorilla not going to get hit by that Paddle Star as the bubble is going to land onto the Sejuani. Gets away, but into control vision as the dredge line not going to register. Lonely looking for the flank as True Shot Barrage sails over but punches in position. Dove just gets eliminated by the Ezreal, and the Sejuani has to run all the way out of this fight. Hybrid still able to offer damage to this Baron, and APK will steal it away at 22.5 minutes.
Wow, played real well from APK. They started, I was a little concerned if it was a bit too early, but the movement from the team, all 4 were there, and then of course Ixu not taking any chances, just teleports in ahead of Lonely's Aatrox, so SANDBOX not able to get any sort of flank or sandwich, and I think SANDBOX were also, they weren't really sure, are we going to go for a steal, are we going to go for a fight, because we saw Punch not kind of going wishy-washy on the top side of that Baron pit, not able to decide if he's just going to go in or go in for a fight with that ultimate. And in the end, APK pick off the kills, actually, turn things around. And like you said, Hybrid also being very wise not to get too far away from Flawless and secure that Baron for themselves.
Yeah, and also just the heads-up play of noticing Dove's health bar being low enough to basically one-shot him with his combo. Really, really clean, because they needed Dove to be there in order to fight that Baron off in any way, shape, or form. So really clean stuff from Hybrid. Gets himself the kill, makes sure Punch is going to exit the area because his health bar wasn't large enough to even fight against the Ezreal. And now Ezreal goes back, completes his Blade of the Ruined King. He is just gigantic, 2,000 gold ahead of his opponent. And Root's 2-0-0, right? Like, this is not an anemic Caitlyn as we check out the preview of Flawless.
Just constantly saying that we have to just hit it. They're all going home. We should be safe. And we see here Zoe cover saying they'll kind of go for a little bit of scout. And they said, okay, just watch that top side of the Baron pit. Just watch the bottom side now as they come in. Oh, and they talk about Sejuani potentially being able to come in, and then they realize the health of Dove, and they say, let's just jump in. And you hear Flawless yelling, like, we gotta stay up there, we gotta stay up there, don't go away, we gotta stay up there.
Yep, and it's just eat the Baron is what I heard over and over again towards the end there.
Right as we were fading out, my favorite part is I don't know whose voice it was. We were like, hey, I think we're getting overexcited.
Well, we'll see whether they continue to get overexcited, as Flawless just might be, getting taken down to half health by Lonely, but the inner turret is going to fall as APK just bear down onto this SANDBOX roster. 7,000 gold is their lead, and the Baron still has 30 seconds to go. A 3,000 gold Baron power play as the base is the next target. Secret standing behind a minion as Dove getting chunked out. There's the Ornhorn. Ixu's going to throw it back just to zone as True Shot Barrage does miss the Chicken Man. And Flawless is very, very tanky. The Cataclysm is going to be escaped from there by Flawless himself, and that buys enough space to take down this turret, but Lonely in trouble, has to flash to get out of the way. The Glacial Fissure is now cover into the backline. Hybrid getting chunked there is actually going to be important, but Root is still safe in this particular fight. The inhibitor surviving for the moment as Gorilla trying to get in there, but he's blocked by Secret. That's exactly what Secret's job is in this composition. Is now Lonely, looks for the backline, will find Hybrid, but he just gets himself out with the Arcane Shift and APK. They've broken the base, and they don't lose anyone on the escape.
Ooh, that was, I think if they played that maybe a little bit more patiently, they could have gotten the inhibitor. Not that they had to be worried, right? I think that the aggression was fine, right? They had the advantage, they had the Baron, Dove was so low, so probably the fight wasn't going to break out immediately, so I think they were just using all their abilities to chase more people home. Unfortunately, it was really just Dove and then Lonely flashing out. As we see, our Lonely flashes out. Dove's now already back with full health, and then you see Hybrid taking a huge chunk of damage and has to back out, not able to put out more damage against the inhibitor, so they failed to secure that extra objective, but at the end, they don't die, which is important, of course.
Yeah.
They're able to get out just fine.
Yeah, Flawless soaking up the ultimate as well. It's not the target that they're looking for, right? You can see Hybrid and cover safe towards the bottom of your screen, and the escape from the rest of the squad is going to be enough to get them out, so not too bad at all there by APK. Who go back, they get some more items. 7,000 gold is their lead. A little bit more than that, in fact, as we've got a minute until the third Ocean Drake is available for APK Prince. And still just 2 items for Root. He needs 4 before he's relevant. And Dove, he does have a fair bit of damage available to him, but unfortunately, without the AD carry, I just don't see a team fight that SANDBOX are going to be able to win based on the composition that they have and the strength of APK.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Secret was able to handle, right? With Route, no one was paying attention to Route. He was just dealing damage through and through, but wasn't really going anywhere past Secret, and even Secret was able to survive for such a long time. And so if APK just made sure they position correctly, Hybrid basically doesn't get caught out, which Secret is helping with even there. APK should be able to continue to win these fights for quite some time. We do see the Runans now coming out for Route, which should help break through a little bit more of that front line outside of just Secret should he move forward. But this third Drake, or this third Ocean Drake rather, definitely going to go in favor of APK as long as they don't risk anything too much here for this inhibitor turret.
Yeah, unless it's a team fight victory, but doesn't look like it, as there's the Glacial Fissure. In goes Flawless, but he's getting taken down very, very low and will die. As now Secret trying to be that front line without the J4. There's a huge 3-man knockup though from Ixu, and they just delete Dove. He's having probably one of his worst games so far on this Ezreal. It's on the Azir. It's not what you want to see from the champion that you are named after, but he's honestly just not being allowed to play the game. As Gorilla tries to get in there with the CC, but he gets punished immediately. And now APK, it looks like they're even just focusing on maybe just winning here. As Cover picks up the turret aggro, they are going to be able to take down this inhibitor turret as well, and feels like all she wrote here for APK, and SANDBOX just without too many options as Punch gets deleted. Gorilla now, he has a few lives in this team fight, but it looks like this is his last one. Great knock-up as Ixu underneath 2 Nexus turrets, but he straight up doesn't care about it. A triple kill as Hybrid picks it up, and the ace is assured. No one to be lost on the side of APK, and this will be the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Dove comes out, but even though people look a little squishy, Dove is still squishier even with a full health bar. And, I mean, Ixu was just hitting every single knockup that he needed in that fight, which allowed Hybrid to keep on jumping in and out of the fight, Lonely just getting zoned away from his face.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter that the ultimate missed because the Nexus is the one taking damage. They want to grab this kill. Hybrid is able to secure it, and it's so good to see this young player performing because, damn, he was a hard carry on the Ezreal in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Hybrid carried that game with his movement, his damage. Of course, a lot of setup coming in from the team. I mean, we have to give props to Zoe, of course, setting up a lot of those early fights and continuing to put out kind of poke damage to really complement Hybrid as he does poke and consistent damage as the AD carry. And then that last fight, I mean, like you said, Gorilla survived early on, but then Ixu was just picking out every other person. It was like Ixu had a hook right? It wasn't a knockup that he needed a structure for. It was like he had a hook against every enemy on the side of SANDBOX, and APK pick up the win in game 1.
Yep, just gigantic. I gave my player of the game to Hybrid at about 20 minutes in that game, and it looks like it is still going to be an effective choice. His Ezreal was absolutely fantastic. The way that he picked off Dove over that Baron wall was just brilliant, and really good to see yet another Korean Ezreal player showing us exactly why we fear this champion so much in this region. Really, really good stuff. But damn, APK performing well and looking like they might be able to break the SANDBOX winning streak.
Yeah, it looks like today might have been the day they needed against a team, that obviously is looking good now, but maybe a little bit more comfortable as an opponent for them, despite their loss in round 1, just in terms of rankings, and APK hopefully able to turn things around for themselves, just for a morale boost, right? Not that they can really change sides in this league overall, but able to just survive and make sure that, we're still able to keep up, we're still able to stay in this scene.
Well, we're going to have a look at some of the highlights here as Secret getting caught out. The thing is, you look at catches like this and you have to ask, what did they gain afterwards? And the answer was absolutely nothing, right? They lost to Rift Herald because they gave up the position of their jungler, and SANDBOX did manage to find some picks in the early game, but it just wasn't enough to get themselves into a position where their composition can work in a mid-game against this ultimate mid-game fighting comp that APK had. And these sort of fights are exactly what you're not going to be able to win against this comp. And APK, honestly, they messed up. They allowed Dove to get a decent Emperor's Divide, but it was still just a 1-for-1 because APK just had too much of an advantage compositionally at that state of the game.
Yeah, APK, it's not that APK played perfectly, but I would say that they were playing better in the times that mattered. They made the conscious decisions, right? Not all of their kills necessarily led to objectives, but they made sure certain ones did. Even here, they get the kill, they decide not to chase, they call Hybrid back, they make sure that they're staying and focused on the right objective. And look at Ixu just getting another instant knockup as he puts down his Q and then chases in with that dash.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah, I mean, Ixu played that so well. Secret, of course, was playing very well for most of those fights, blocking out that damage. And then Hybrid dancing around all of that to make sure that they get the kills, right? Just because your front line is tanky doesn't mean that you'll get kills. You need to dish out the damage around it. And you see it right there. He jumps forward and then makes sure he positions himself not to get caught out by Gorilla.
Yeah, and then the flash from Ixu to get into the back line underneath 2 Nexus turrets, but he just doesn't care whatsoever. He's a big tanky boy as the Nexus is eventually taken down here by APK. And this is such a huge morale boost for this team because these guys haven't been doing a lot of winning recently, but they haven't been playing awfully. This is something that we've been talking about a lot, is the fact that APK aren't as bad as maybe their scoreline suggests. They have been able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams.
Yeah, there are teams like that where it seems like they're just missing that edge, right? They're just missing that 2% to close out games, to really come together as a team, and the potential's there. And oftentimes, whether it's a change of pace, a change of schedule, maybe one roster swap or something, that's all they need. And hopefully, for now, this win, even just in one game, not the whole match, is able to bring them back up into that state. Yeah.
Well, having a look at the damage, I'm very happy with delivering my player of the game over to Hybrid. And looking at the gold difference as well, it's a clean win from APK. That's what we want to see. We want to see more cleanliness in the video games from this team. And it's a standard comp. It's not the Alawi crazy shenanigans that we see from Ixu. But Ornn is a pretty damn good champion. Maybe pick it before last pick on blue side. I don't know. Maybe some adjustments in the draft. I don't know, Choba. I don't know what we're going to be able to get for game number 2, but I have a feeling that Ornn gentleman is going to be forging some things on the bench rather than in the video game. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a short break. When we get back, game number 2.